Welcome back, everybody. Well, we often talk about power in terms of those who have it, those who want more of it, and those who want nothing to do with it. But as much as we talk about it, power is still largely misunderstood.
Our next guest wants to change that with her new book, Power for All, How It Really Works and Why It's Everyone's Business. Author Tiziana Casciaro joins us today. Welcome to the show, Tiziana.
Wonderful to be here.
Okay, we want to dive into this because, as you say in the book, the concept of power is still really largely misunderstood. So let's begin with the basics in terms of how you define power.
Absolutely. You're right that we need to define it because we talk about it all the time, but we don't necessarily understand it. Power is quite simply the ability to influence the behavior of other people. And you can influence it through persuasion. You can influence through coercion sometimes. You can influence to achieve something good or something bad. But what really matters is to understand that power is everywhere. We need it every time we want to act, every time we want to achieve something, every time we want to change something. So it's an intrinsic part of our lives.
You say that anyone can gain power by having something valuable to offer others. When people hear that, they may think of material things like money or professional opportunities and be discouraged that they don't have those things. So what else do people commonly value that we could offer in a power dynamic?
So you have to kind of back up and understand that when you look at human nature and the things that motivate us, there are two basic needs that we all have. One is the need to be safe from harm. The other one is the need to feel worthy, to be worth something. And you can feed those two needs through material resources because, money can make you feel safe. Money can make you feel superior. But we also value more psychological resources that are not so material, that are very important to us. And there are four in particular that always come into play. And they are in a feeling of achievement, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of autonomy, of being a master of our own choices, and a feeling of morality, of feeling like you're a good person. These four things always play out. Of course, different people will value different things at different times. So our job when we engage in a power relationship is to try to understand the person in front of us and what is important to them at that point in time.
Another misconception that people often is that people often equate power with authority. So, for example, in a typical power hierarchy, that those at the top have the power, perhaps those at the bottom, they have none. You say that's not quite so, but you also suggest that power mapping is a way that we can take a look at this. So what is power mapping and what would that look like?
Power mapping is the process through which you understand who has power and why. Power mapping has to do with two skills. It's a skill of observation. So think about all those meetings that sometimes we are bored to tears when we attend them. And instead of being bored, you can use that time to observe how people behave around you, who talks more, who defers to whom, who is making faces when somebody talks. And those are all indications that is starting point really in understanding who has sway in that environment. The other skill you can draw from is a skill of inquiry, asking questions. You can ask, who is a role model around here? As opposed to asking, who is powerful, who is influential, because that can sound a little bit more conniving. But if you ask, yes, who are the people that you admire? It's a way to get into who has influence because they are respected, because they are followed, because what they have to say has meaning to people. So these two skills combined can give you a map of the hubs of influence. And once you have that map, you can chart a path toward acquiring the resources you need to get things done, to accomplish what you have on your mind.
I mean, I feel like in recent conversations, especially, power has become kind of a bit of a dirty word. And in some cases, you say this actually prevents people from networking and seeking power themselves because I guess they feel like it's sort of wrong or immoral in some ways. How would you suggest that people maybe get themselves out of that mindset?
Yeah, the selfishness of networking is what makes people recoil from it. So the first thing you want to do is to remind yourself that a productive networking attempt is one that is mutually beneficial. It's beneficial to both parties. So what you are aiming for is to think about what you can contribute way before you think about what you can get out of that relationship. And that more mutually beneficial attitude is what lifts the weight of networking off your shoulders, and you will engage with it with a much better attitude.
That's a great perspective. Let's stick with networking a little bit, because you say that for women especially, we need to shift our outlook on it, because it's not just networking, it's also who we network with. And you say that you did a lot of research with women supporting other women in these power dynamics. What did you find there?
There's a stereotype that is alive and well that women can be very competitive with each other at work. So we studied this, and we looked at two different companies, one a very large financial institution, so banking, and the other one a tech corporation. And in both cases, we found that when you ask colleagues to kind of evaluate each other on multiple criteria, it could be competence, it could be how trustworthy you are, how energizing it is to work with you, women rate other women more positively than they rate men. These findings show us that we can find a lot of support in other women. And so diversifying in many ways the kind of networking that we engage in is extremely important.
Even though a person may actually possess a lot of power, that doesn't necessarily mean that they always or necessarily at all feel like they are powerful. So I think this is especially true for women as well as those from marginalized communities. So you have a self-affirmation exercise that can help. Can you walk us through that?
Yes, this self-affirmation exercise was actually adopted in a business school in Europe that had experienced a very significant grade gap between male and female students. And so this researcher came up with this wonderful intervention. And each and every one of us can engage in it. So what you want to do is to write down one or two values that are important to you. And they could be honesty, they could be generosity, whatever really is meaningful to you. And then you write down an example of something you do in your daily life through which you live up to that value or those values. And that's a reminder of the things that you're good at, the things that make you a strong person, a good person, a person consistent with your own ideals. And that intervention, done a couple of times over the course of this MBA, was enough to erase the grade gap between male and female students, because the women found in themselves the things that made them good. It's at our disposal. Each and every one of us can pick up a pen, write down these things, and feel better about themselves and feel more secure about what you can contribute.
Wow, fascinating discussion. We're so excited that you were able to join us and tell us more about your book, Tiziana. Thank you so much for being with us.
It was lovely to chat with you both. Thank you so much for having me.
And let's remind the viewers the book. I know everyone's like, what's that book again? It's called Power for All. You can find it everywhere right now. We'll be right back.